Hello, I'm Susan Rogers with McNair Dallas Law. I work with certified elder law attorney John McNair, and he's asked me to put together this video series we're calling Verses. In this video series, we'll be talking about some terms and programs and services that are often confused with one another. In this first video for our Verses series, we're going to talk about what is the difference between Medicare and Medicaid. So to start off, we're first going to talk about some of the things these two programs have in common. They both were created by the Older Americans Act of 1965. They both provide health insurance. They both are regulated by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, also referred to as CMS. And some senior adults can actually qualify for both, and this is called being dual certified. So, how are these programs funded? Medicare is funded through payroll taxes and through the general federal government revenue. The important thing to remember about Medicare is that it is federally funded, and so the program is the same nationwide. With Medicaid, this is a partnership between the federal government and each state government. And because of that, each state funds Medicaid differently and organizes their program differently. They may have different criteria for being approved for the Medicaid program, and they may offer Medicaid coverage to different populations of people. To be eligible for Medicare, it's not income restricted, so no one will ask about your monthly income or your assets. But the individual applying for Medicare must be age 65 or older or have certain disabilities, including end-stage renal disease. For Medicaid, the qualifications are very different. Anyone who receives Medicaid must have very low income and assets. And in Texas, only certain populations qualify, and those populations are pregnant women, children of families with low income and assets, disabled adults with low income and assets, or nursing home residents with low income and assets. Now, we talked at the beginning a little bit about how these programs are often misunderstood. And one of the biggest misconceptions about Medicare is that people believe that Medicare will pay for long-term care, including assisted living or nursing home care. And unfortunately, that is just not the truth. Medicare has no coverage for long-term nursing home care or assisted living. There is some coverage for a short-term rehab stay in a rehab hospital or a nursing home, but that's very short-term, only under certain circumstances, and again, does not cover long-term care. With Medicaid, a lot of times people think that if someone has qualified for Medicaid in one state, that they'll qualify for Medicaid in another state, and that is also not true. We often have families that come to us who live here in the Dallas area but have a loved one in another state who's currently receiving Medicaid services. And we have to inform them that if they were to move here to Texas, they may not qualify for Texas Medicaid because the criteria for qualification is different here than in other states. And even if they do qualify, the benefits may not be the same. And so that is a disappointment and a kind of a shock to many families. How many people are enrolled in these programs? Well, in Texas, there are 4.5 million Texans enrolled in Medicare. Most of those are seniors over the age of 65, but some of those are individuals with disabilities. For Medicaid, there are almost 500,000 Texans who qualify for Medicaid benefits, but the majority of those are children from families with very low income and assets. Some of those are pregnant women, and the majority of the rest are nursing home residents. Coverage for Medicare and Medicaid is also different. Now, you may know that Medicare has two main programs. One we call traditional Medicare or original Medicare. And Medicare has the same benefits nationwide because it has that federal funding. If you live in one state but you travel a lot, your Medicare coverage will be the same anywhere you go in the US. If you've chosen a Medicare Advantage program, your coverage may be geographically restricted. And by that, it could be restricted to your county or a region or your state. But often those plans are restricted. So you'll want to check that out. We'll have another video about the differences between traditional Medicare and Medicare Advantage. So look for that. For Medicaid, the coverage is state specific, as we talked about, and it varies based on your eligibility criteria. So for children, they will have different Medicaid benefits than pregnant women, who will have different benefits than a nursing home resident. So each program is a little different. Medicare has several parts. You may have heard Part A, Part B, Part C, Part D. For traditional Medicare, that includes Part A, Part B, and Part D. Part A being hospitalization insurance and insurance that covers physician services and appointments. Part B covers outpatient services and some supplies, and Part D is the prescription service. With Medicaid, those same things are covered, and there can be a variety of different care and services provided for specific populations. With traditional Medicare, there is a premium for Part A, the hospitalization and physician insurance. But if you've worked 40 quarters or 10 years and paid into your Medicare taxes, then you should not have to pay a premium for Part A. For Part B, which is the outpatient services and supplies and such, there is a monthly premium. This year, that premium is $164.90. That's in 2023, but that number is adjusted annually. It rises annually based on the cost of living adjustment. And in terms of copay for traditional Medicare, most care and services are covered at 80% of Medicare approved charges. And that means the patient would pay the remaining 20% or any costs above the approved charges. Now, Medicare does have some services that there is no copay for, like your annual physical or some immunizations, your flu shot, that type of thing. But many services are covered at 80%, and the patient has that 20% copay. For nursing home Medicaid, there is no premium for nursing home Medicaid, and there's no copay. However, with nursing home Medicaid, the person receiving that benefit is paying all of their monthly income to the nursing home, except for $60, which they retain for a personal expense allowance. And so because of that, premiums and copays, they don't really apply with nursing home Medicaid. For prescriptions, coverage can vary according to the formulary of the plan selected. So traditional Medicare has many different prescription drug plans, and they're often specific to different diagnoses. So, for example, if you're a diabetic, you may be able to choose a prescription drug plan that specifically covers medications that are common for people with diabetes. So it's important that every year during the Medicare enrollment period, you look at that Medicare drug coverage. You look at the medications you're on. You maybe talk with your doctor and find out if they are planning any changes to your medications. And then you make sure that the medications you are taking are covered by the formulary of your plan. And that can change year to year within the same plan. So it's important to check every year. The other concern often is out of pocket maximum. And traditional Medicare does not have an out of pocket maximum for healthcare expenditures. And what this means is that with an out-of-pocket maximum in, let's say, most commercial insurance plans, let's say your out-of-pocket maximum is $8,000 a year. That means that once you spend $8,000 on your medical needs, at that point, the insurance will take over and cover the rest of the cost of your medical care for the rest of that year. But Medicare does not have an out-of-pocket maximum. And so this means you would continue to pay 20%, that 20% copay. So if you had a hospitalization costing $10,000, Medicare would pay $8,000 and you would be responsible for the remaining $20,000. If you had a $100,000 hospital bill, it would be that same 80-20 division. And those copays can really add up. With nursing home Medicaid, again, out-of-pocket maximum is not really going to be applicable here because of the way that program is set up, where you're paying all of your income as a single recipient. You'd pay all of your income to the nursing facility. You'd keep the $60 personal needs allowance, and then Medicaid would pay the difference or the balance for the cost of your care. Now, with prescriptions, all of your prescription medications and all of your over-the-counter medications would be covered by the nursing facility under that Medicaid benefit. Now, a lot of people ask about how can we pay for nursing care, physical rehabilitation, those type of services. And traditional Medicare does have a benefit for this. Not only will it cover in-home rehabilitation from a physical therapist or wound care from a nurse, but it also will cover a short-term stay in a nursing home, but only after a qualifying hospitalization. And what's a qualifying hospitalization? That would be a hospitalization where the individual was admitted to the hospital and spent at least 3 midnights as an admitted patient in the hospital. They then could go to a rehab hospital or to a nursing home under this Medicare benefit, where they could receive up to 20 days of care paid at 100%. And if they needed care beyond that 20th day, between days 21 up to day 100, there's a daily copay. After 100 days, there's no more coverage until that benefit period resets. Traditional Medicare does not have any coverage for long-term care in any setting, whether that's assisted living, memory care, nursing home. No coverage for long-term care. On the contrary, nursing home Medicaid does have coverage for long-term care. Nursing home Medicaid covers exactly that. It covers that long-term nursing home care in Texas, but you must qualify with a medical need and a financial need. In terms of nursing and rehabilitation, Medicaid has limited coverage for physical therapy or other rehabilitation services. However, many nursing home residents who are over the age of 65 will qualify both for Medicaid and for Medicare. So their rehabilitation would be billed under Medicare, and their long-term care and residency at the nursing home would be covered by Medicaid. So, how can you learn more? Both of these programs, as we talked about, um, are governed and regulated by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. They have a pretty comprehensive website at cms.gov. You can also get more information on our website at McNair Dallas Law.com. It's actually McNair-DallasLaw.com. And there we have a series of articles and other information that may shed some light on these topics. We invite you to contact us to book a call if you have questions and you're in the Dallas area. But we hope that this video has been helpful for you. If it has, we ask that you would hit that like button and subscribe. And we will have this series continuing with other topics, including the difference between traditional Medicare and Medicare Advantage plans. So again, thank you. This has been Susan Rogers with McNair Dallas Law.